That makes me sweat. You one of my kind. All right, 3 minutes 49 seconds into my first live stream in a very, 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 very long time. Going to talk a little bit about maybe where I am with my career and how I got here. So everybody dreamed of being a baseball star, football star, basketball star, maybe even a rock star when they were young. I, on the other hand, I just wanted to be a roadie. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but I saw Kiss when I was 10 years old and told my mom that's what I was going to do for a living. Kiss wasn't a very good band, it turns out. Very rudimentary in their ability to play their instruments, but they did just enough to capture the hearts and minds of people like myself. Young, influential, pretty much early teens or preteen boys. I'm pretty rudimentary myself. Kiss could write a melody, though, and they could play a melody, and I love melodies. So that's another thing that caught me. And I do have a flair for the theatrics as well. I can be a bit dramatic. So the perfect storm, Kiss. 10 years old, away I go. Let's see if I can work my screen here a little bit. And I don't know if I can do that. Let's see here. Yeah, let's see here. Uh-huh. Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, Kiss, rock and roll, away I go. And I spent most of my 80s going to concerts and not playing in bands, but wanting to work for a band. And eventually it came true by the end of the 80s. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of these that I've accumulated either through working with artists or working for them directly or being a a fly on the wall to some of their performances and antics backstage. So right here, right off the bat, I have these. These aren't rock and roll things, but these are kind of cool. These are from Camden Yards, Baltimore. Hey, Mark, what's up? How are you, buddy? Hope you feel better. Rooting for you on Monday. And Ziggy, what's up, man? Ziggy, these are down your way. Baltimore Orioles, 1996 roving passes. This is when Eddie Murray was threatening to hit his 500th home run. And we had some big things planned for Eddie, and we were going to light up the warehouse and all that stuff. It was going to be awesome. But Eddie didn't hit his home run for the long homestand. So anyway, I got to go to Baltimore Oriole games every day for 2 weeks, talk to Mark McGuire, Ken Griffey Jr. Hey, Dean, how are you, man? And all that fun stuff. Yeah, I got my Freddies going. Yeah, they just opened up here. It's my son's favorite fries, apparently, Ziggy. I don't know why, but they're all right. So yeah, there's some roving passes from the Baltimore Orioles, 96. Here's some Eagles stuff. First game, Philadelphia Eagles. This is a pass to work at the stadium for 2003 season. Here's a fun little pass from Autzen Stadium at University of Oregon. I took my son to see a football game there in 2015. Of course, it's the year Marcus Mariota won the Heisman Trophy. So let's get on to the fun stuff. There's some boring stuff in here, and there might be some names you guys recognize. Tim Finn right there. He used to be in the Split Ends, okay? He opened up for a band I worked for, 10,000 Maniacs, 1989. Tim Finn, great guy, wonderful guy. Drummer on that tour was a guy named Jerry Murata. Red Light 34, how are you? Dean, I think I said hi to you, but I'm going to say hi again. So anyway, Tim Finn, drummer, Jerry Murata played for Peter Gabriel on a lot of those great Peter Gabriel albums. That was Tim Finn's drummer. Again, great guy. Got the pleasure of seeing him every night. Here's one from that I don't talk about that much. My Richard Marx tour, 1992. Probably the worst tour I've ever done in my life. That's that. Bob Dylan. There's a Bob Dylan tour right there. Nice little. These call laminates, right? So we wear these around our necks like big rock stars ourselves, and get to go anywhere we wanted to. It says it right there. All access all areas. So laminates are a little bit different than the stick-on passes. This is from the band Kicks, another one of Ziggy's homeboys, the Baltimore area, and this is from a little tour they did around the Maryland area. Patriot Center in Vienna, Virginia. Ziggy's probably familiar with that. Porn star, a bad dream as a young man growing up. It was not a bad dream, but it did seem like a lot of work, Ziggy. Tracy Chapman tour, 1992. That was not very much fun either for many reasons. But the cool thing about this was Leland Sklar was her bass player on that tour, and he is a true legend. Crosby, Stills, and Nash. This is a Live It Up tour, 1990. The Live It Up cruise, apparently, July 12th, 1990. I don't know what that's all about. I don't remember that. Here's a Four Tops pass. And here is, not to be outdone, a Temptations pass. What do we got here? This is from something very interesting here. You see Concert Crew, John Keating, Best Boy. And if you look real close there, that's the Jonas Brothers logo. This is from their Jonas Brothers 3D film shot in Anaheim. They called it the Pond back then. They probably still do. You can see my nice picture there. This is probably 2009, maybe. There I am right there, mugging for the camera. 2009. Lovely. Neil Young, this is an acoustic tour, 1992. Access all areas. Neil Young is the Babe Ruth of music to me. Here's another one from a different leg of the tour. One of my favorite bands right here, 10,000 Maniacs. This is from WEA, Werner Electra Atlantic National Sales Meeting. I remember the Maniacs got a couple gold records or platinum records that night. I was in somewhere Hollywood, Florida, I think. Yeah, Leland is an incredible guy. Let me get to yeah. Let me get back to the comments. So we were not quite porn stars without the camera, Ziggy. We were kind of like the stunt cocks, as they would say. So we were the fluffers, I guess, for the headliners. But I appreciate you elevating us into a category we probably don't believe need to be elevated to. Dean says, my wife wanted me to let you know that she was at the Richard Marx concert in Moon, PA. Moon, PA. Is that where Star Lake is, Dean? I'm not quite sure. Starlake Amphitheater, I think. Burgettstown or something like that. Somewhere out there. Hey, Brent Richards, how are you, man? Thanks for coming along. Back to you, Mark. Yeah, Leland is a nice guy. Leland would come off stage every night during Tracy's acoustic version of things and sit there and chat with me. He was just a wonderful guy. And I asked him, why are you doing this tour? This is in 1992. And if you don't know Leland Sklar, I guess in all the Phil Collins videos, but he was back in the 70s. He played for and with everybody, Jackson Browne, pretty big thing there. But Leland said to me, he goes, I'm at the point in my life where I can do anything I want. So I wanted to come out and play with Tracy for 5 weeks. So here I am. And I thought that was pretty darn cool. Not doing it for the money, but just doing it for the vibe, I guess. So yeah, that was fun. Good afternoon, Terry Alexander. How are you? We're running through some backstage passes here. This is another 10,000 Maniacs backstage pass. I did a gajillion tours with them. And what's funny on here is it says, my name is John. And I don't know what it says after that, which is pretty cool, I guess. Another 10,000 Maniacs pass. Here is from the Fla Festival. Fla, you say there's a D in there, but this is Irish for festival. This is 1996. This is at... This is in England, London, England, 10,000 Maniacs. And what was cool about this, I got to see Christy Moore, who is a great Irish folk singer. I got to see John Prine and some other bands while working for the Maniacs over there in London town. I'm trying to figure out, Finsbury Park was the name of the park where the festival was held. So Robert Morris College. I might have been there. Dean. Hey, Don, how are you? I'm going to show you some more. Here's some more 10,000 Maniac stuff. Again, I have a lot of it. So this is something that a lot of folks are enamored with. It's Red Rocks. And Red Rocks is a wonderful place to see a show. It's kind of a difficult place to work because you used to have to unload your trucks at the bottom of the hill, put them in smaller trucks. And so if you had 4 trucks, it would take probably... 4 trips per truck if you're lucky, and that's 16 trips up and down each way. So Red Rocks, Maniacs, this is from 1989. Laguna Seca Days. Okay, so if you look up Laguna Seca Days in 1993, if you Google that stuff, it says Maniacs there, you'll see, Mark Hoyle, some of the bands that were at that show. Maniacs headlined one night, and amongst the other bands on that bill were Blues Traveler, Big Head Todd and the Monsters, which I thought was awesome. But Fish was there, Dave Matthews Band, and the Allman Brothers, and maybe somebody else that I'm missing. So Google Laguna Seca Days 1993, and maybe you'll find some really, really fun stuff there. Maniacs here again, Spring Tour 1995. What's this? Another Maniacs, and this must be mine because it says John on it. And here we go. This is what we were looking for. This is a refractor, I think the kids call it, right? So refractor, Jonas Brothers, 3D movie, backstage pass, John Keating. I'm sure that's worth at least $1.59 on eBay. Big Head Todd. I forget what song I used to love from Big Head Todd. But anyway, I like Big Head Todd. I like a lot of bands from that era, for sure. Don used to live 20 minutes away from Red Rocks. It is a beautiful place for sure. I have a friend that lives out that way. He doesn't quite, he's kind of quiet. He's kind of quiet on the internet, but he DMs me. He lives out in Colorado, and his dad, again, was in a famous band, a bass player, and that's fun. Here is a Janet Jackson. This is my laminate from the Janet Jackson tour, 1993, 94. We went all over the place, all over the world. This is I guess the back March 20th through 27th. I don't know what that means, but it's from our Japan leg, I think. Didn't know I was a guest. I thought I was working on that tour. Here's that CSN 1990. It says John Keating. This is another refractor, kids. Look at that. Look at that, man. We were ahead of our time back then. If you're into cornhole, Here's Corn. This is from, I think, 1997. These guys were just starting to get big and starting to carry their lighting gear, their sound gear, all that stuff. So that's Corn. Cornhole's big thing here. Thank you, Ziggy. I appreciate it. Here is this is what's called a meal ticket for a big time concert. So RFK Stadium, 1993, Grateful Dead. If you look on the back, you got some Elvis there. So it's the pig out. So this is if you had to have this to eat catering backstage. And just, I've done a bunch of Grateful Dead shows, and just, I was kind of scared to eat at Grateful Dead shows because I remember being the first Grateful Dead show I did in 1989. It was 10,000 Maniacs open up in Buffalo Ridge Stadium. And I was told, don't eat anything because they spray everything down with LSD. So for the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't eat anything at any Grateful Dead show because I was a little bit paranoid. More live, please. I'll try, Ziggy. I'm not that good at it. I'm not that good at anything, which is why I like Kiss, or I liked Kiss when I was younger. So I'll try to do more live because it really is fun to chat with people. But I get so into my own little world that I forget that there's other people in the chat. So perhaps this will help me practice, and I'll get better at it. Would you like better? Who do I like better off stage? Well, Graham Nash. Graham Nash was the nicest out of any of those three guys. Stills is a complete. He was like the Steve Carlton of rock and roll. He was out there. Obviously incredibly talented, but he was out there. I think I've told a story where I went to about 3 months into working with Crosby, Stills, Nash. I went to a game at Tiger Stadium. There was like 5 of us, and Stills, his road manager, and 3 mooks like myself. And we're at old Tiger Stadium, and Stills turns to the guy, his road manager, says, "Who are those guys with us?" And like, he had no idea that we had just spent the last 3 months hanging crap over his head every day. So, and seeing him every day and all that stuff. So, and Crosby was as advertised. He's a bit of an SOB, very cantankerous, and nice enough to me and all that stuff. But he did have an edge. And Graham Nash, absolute sweetheart of a guy, for sure. Sonic Youth. If anybody likes punk music, Sonic Youth apparently is pretty good. Now, these guys opened up on a Neil Young tour in 1991, the Ragged Glory tour with Crazy Horse. It was Social Distortion, Sonic Youth, and Neil Young. These guys were kind of miserable people to hang out with. They used to break stuff all the time and just act all punky and all that stuff. So, whatever. Not my cup of tea. Favorite band to work with? Man, that's between 10,000 Maniacs, whom I probably worked for on and off. Last time I did a 10,000 Maniacs show was in 2016. Oddly enough, it's November 11th right now. I believe 10,000 Maniacs are playing in the town I live in tonight. But with that said, I have to go fly to Atlanta tonight. But it would be between the Maniacs and Neil Young, who I did 4 tours for. So there you go. There's the Neil Young laminate from the 1991 tour, the loudest show I've ever done. But I did the Neil Young tours I would do anytime, anywhere, any place without asking any questions. I'm going to run through some more laminates here. I didn't know I had that many. Here's something for if you're into a little Southern thing. There's a little Tanya Tucker, as they say. Sponsored by Black Velvet, which is kind of cool. John Keating will never die. Boy, that's a scary sentiment, but I appreciate it. Ani DeFranco. I did a couple tours with Ani DeFranco. Now, Ani DeFranco, this is from The Joint, I guess. I want to say this is in Vegas, where we did a bunch of shows. Ani DeFranco. I'll tell some Ani DeFranco stories. There's an Ani DeFranco laminate from the George tour. And if you hear keys back there, if you see keys, these are keys to the buses that I never gave back. So somewhere there's a bus around there. Missing its keys. Another Ani DeFranco. Ani DeFranco is a wonderful, wonderful artist, incredibly talented. And here's some more Ani DeFranco stuff. Buffalo, New York. She owned her own record label. When I say owned her own record label, she lock, stock, and barrel owned her own record label, which means when she put an album out, all she needed was a distributor like a local distributor. She didn't, or whatever, a distributor to get into the stores. She didn't have to pay a bigger record company anything or anything like that. So there was a Kiplinger's magazine report around the time I worked for her, where it said she makes, if she sells 500,000 albums, she makes as much as Madonna on an album, as Madonna selling 5 million records, because Ani pocketed all the middleman expenses and didn't have to share them with record company bigwigs. Anyway, wonderfully talented singer, songwriter. I worked for her in the late 90s. What kind of work do I do, if you don't mind me asking? So I was for years, a lighting guy, as they say. So I would work for either the bands directly as a lighting designer or director, or a member of the crew doing lighting. And sometimes I'd work for companies and stuff like that. So I started that full time in 1988. Got out of high school in 1985, worked in a theater for a couple of years, and kept cold calling companies until somebody hired me. And finally they did. So here we are now, showing off the backstage passes. There's Def Leppard. That's from, I forget what tour. Let's Get Loud, whatever Let's Get Loud was. That's 92 or something like that, 93. I don't know. Here's another Maniacs. There's me when I was real young, and I probably had some jet fuel going through my system, and it's not the kind that comes out of a coffee machine. They would make up passes. Apparently, there's a phone number back there. Come back soon, Johnny boy. Love you lots. Big Johnson Simmons. So obviously we played a lot of jokes, so I had to wear this around my neck for months at a time. And here's me. This is 90. This would be 93, I want to think. There's John Keating. I like my bananas. And there's our Phillies hat. And again, dangerously close to going full mullet on everybody. So there's that. Here's a Grateful Dead one from Johnny Clegg and Savuka. I talked about this June 1st, 1991. This was at the LA Coliseum, which was a pretty massive show. Probably 90,000 Deadheads at the LA Coliseum. It's a pretty cool laminate right there. Hey, James, how are you, man? Good seeing you last weekend. Hope you did well at the tables. 1995, Ray Charles. There's a Ray Charles show, which was kind of fun to see. Ray Charles had a rule where you cannot have a smoke machine for some reason, and he wouldn't know if the lights were too bright, if he was too warm. So his manager would come over and say, Ray says the lights are too bright. And you're asking how a blind man can tell if the lights are too bright. It's because he was too hot. So we'd have to turn down the lights because Ray said they were too bright. Here's Maniacs in Brazil. Where was that? That was in August of some year in Rio, a couple shows, and Sao Paulo, 1997, I guess that would be. I think I remember that tour because my son was born, and 2 weeks later I was in Brazil working for those guys. Another Maniacs here. Christian Burial Music was their publishing company, so they had a lot of iconic. They weren't religious people, but they had a lot of Natalie liked to use a lot of religious iconery, as they say. John flipped the frickin' switch for lighting on Ripken 2131. Too cool. Yeah, that was a fun night. Only thing we did was light the actual banners, the 2-1-3-1, and I was right there in the right field wall and flipped the switch. Got to see him hit his home run that night. It was really a magical night. It's one of those times where it was just pretty darn cool to be at a sporting event. So thanks for bringing it up, Brent. I appreciate it. WWF TV crew, 1992. I used to work for WWF, which is called something else now. And so I would go out with WWF, and WWF would film like 3 weeks worth of shows in 2 days. We would play places like maybe Syracuse one night, and the next night go to Rochester, or Gulfport, Mississippi, and the next night be in Palm Beach, Texas, like Amarillo and Lubbock, like all these BFE towns where nobody goes to, but the crowds were crazy. So they would film all their footage in a couple nights and piece it all together, all the interviews. If you remember the old school 80s and 90s WWF, they would do all these interviews in front of, green screens and stuff like that. So I used to set up the little interview rooms, which were soundproof. They had cameras in them, lights, all that stuff, and away we go. I think, I'm not a wrestling guy, but there's a lot of all those people back then were there. Hulk and um, um, Brutus Beefcake, the Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake, the Undertaker was just coming along, and Gorilla Monsoon and I would fly to Philly every show because he lived in like South Jersey, so I would be on Gorilla Monsoon's flight every time. Let's see here. This is from the Tom Petty tour in 1991. Into the Great Wide Open. Wonderful tour, wonderfully challenging tour because we had a lot of we had a big lighting rig that was not modular, which meant it all went up together. And there was times where I swear we had to butter the sides of the lighting rig to get it in the air so that it didn't scrape the walls. Played a lot of amphitheaters. Their last, it was the fall of 1991, so a lot of amphitheaters. Their last show of the year. So Dallas, I remember it being 30 degrees. The Starplex, Starwood, Star something. Anyway, over there in Dallas. Star Lake was in Pittsburgh. Starplex was in Dallas, and I don't know, man. It's been too long. Anyway, let's get on to stuff. Here's Metallica from 1997. This was a friend of mine who I got a job in the business that I went to high school with. That's a pass. I believe this was April 9th, 1997. You'll probably look up. It'll be the Capitol Center in Largo, Maryland. Roddy Piper might have been there too, I think. So April 9th, 1997, I guarantee you that's probably Largo, Maryland, the Capitol Center. Here's a random 10,000 Maniacs pass. I'm going to throw all this stuff over here, make some more room. Got a lot of junk, guys. I apologize. REM, October 16th, 1995. That's probably at the Capitol Center as well. Good friends of mine were on that tour. Apparently his name was Conrad. Here's an example of Ani DeFranco backstage pass. Righteous Babe Records. That's her record company right there, Righteous Babe. So that's that jazz. Brooks and Dunn. If you like your Brooks and Dunn, here it is. I don't know where I got this done. Oh, it's got Reba too. Apparently Reba was there as well. I got done a lot of Reba shows, so I don't know what that's from. More Ani DeFranco stuff. Here is recently departed legend, Tina Turner. This is from a show in Baltimore somewhere. Not quite sure where. If you're familiar with the old Nissan Pavilion in somewhere out there, I think Manassas, Virginia. This is from that. That's another friend of mine who I got in the business. That's the No Doubt. I think Weezer opened up, so that's from 1997. This is Lilith Fair. I don't know what year that's from. I don't know what I was doing at Lilith Fair, but thankfully I wasn't buying tickets. Here's our girl Reba, 1993. If you know, you know, as they say. Here's a Spinal Tap backstage pass. It says "Break Like the Wind." 1992. It says I was a rigger. I was not a rigger. That means you pull chains up in the air and you get dirty and greasy and you hang from the beams. That wasn't me. There's Squeeze, Life in the Bus Lane. What's this? This is Melissa Etheridge. This is why I was out with, I think, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And this is probably from Memphis, right? Yep. And which is interesting because David Crosby would soon after donate his DNA to Melissa Etheridge and her first wife, I guess. Another Kicks pass. Kicks are for kids. Here's Guns N' Roses from 1991. The Pearls of Rock and Roll Decadence. I saw this show in Philly with a production manager that I did Janet Jackson with as well. The Moody Blues. There's some Moody Blues pass, 1993. Hey, we're kind of in the yacht rock phase, right? Well, Moody Blues is in yacht rock. There's Chicago from some year, 1990 maybe. I don't know. Here's another Kicks from the 1991 tour. Here's a concert hall pass from Kennedy Center, MCA. If you know anything about Leonard Skinner working for MCA, here's another Reba. Good old Reba. Yeah, I got him in a binder. I'll sell him. Maybe I'll sell him, Mark. I don't know. Here is Bruce Springsteen, 1992-93. My company did this tour, so I think I had to take the Neil Young's LD to this as a client bonding effort, and this was at the LA Sports Arena in Los Angeles. Bruce Springsteen and his E Street Band, or maybe they weren't on. Yeah, they were on there. Anyway, LA Sports Arena. That's where we got to see The Wall in 1991 for the very first time live. Not me, but the whole world. Dire Straits. I'm a fan of Mark Knopfler's playing. I'm sure Mark Hoyle is as well. Dire Straits tour right there. I want to say that's 92. Beginning of the show, I was playing a little In Excess, and that's an In Excess pass there. Here's David Bowie's Sound and Vision tour, 1990 at the Roxy, which is in LA. It was a club, which was pretty impressive to see David Bowie in a club. A little bit of a shine there, huh? Little chrome, maybe. I don't know. Now, this is probably the moment everybody's been waiting for, and my viewership will probably drop from 4 to 1 after I show this. But it's a little Michael Bolton for the ladies out there. My company that I worked for also did their tour. So a little time, love, and tenderness from Michael Bolton. What a guy, what a haircut. What a time. Here is Sir Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney World Tour. I remember this vividly. This was Giant Stadium. It says Giants on there. 1990, we had a day off. Crosby, Stills, and Nash was playing what would have been Continental Airlines or Brendan Byrne Arena, and next door the night before our day off, McCartney was playing. My company was doing the lights for those guys as well, so we went and had Hey Girl time with some of our colleagues. Philadelphia's own Cinderella. I remember seeing this at 1989. If you look up July 11, 1989, Cinderella, I guarantee it was at the Met Center in Bloomington, Minnesota, where the North Stars used to play. And so I remember that concert very well there. Cinderella, Philadelphia's own Cinderella. Here's a pretty cool pass. I always thought this was pretty cool. It's David Lee Roth. I think whatever his tour was called, Eat 'Em and Smile, I think. It says it right there. I just love the colors in this thing. I know we're talking about them like they're baseball cards, but the colors in this pass were pretty cool because there was a lot of passes where it was just one color on a white pass, but this is put some effort into that. This is another Sir. It's Elton John, the Red Stripes Back Tour, crew pass. I don't know what the date was on this, but that's that. Another, well, this is the Graceland Tour from Paul Simon. And I thought the Graceland album was just absolutely incredible. The fidelity of the music and all that stuff I thought was just absolutely amazing. So kind of fun to see that. Now, if you look at the back, this is ironic, huh? If you look at the back, there was a company called Otto that OTTO that pretty much had the corner market on that. They have their kind of their logo in there. They were like the tops of backstage passes. So pretty fun stuff. Near Goats or Partial Goats. Mike and the Mechanics. This was in Maryland somewhere, 1989. Mike and the Mechanics, of course. Mike Rutherford from Genesis. And I believe the singer was from Squeeze. Gosh, I forget what his name is, but somebody will chime in, I'm sure. Man, I forget. It's on the tip of my tongue. Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood Tour. When I was with the Maniacs in 1990, we went and saw these guys in Hampton Roads, Virginia. So great band even without Phil Collins, says TJ. Listen to him chiming in from South Philly. This is one of my favorite personal bands right here. Cowboy Junkies. Miles from Our Home is actually a great album, which was in the late 90s. Love this band, have for a very, very long time, and they just continue to go at it. They're Canadians as well, which makes things better. B-52s, Cosmic Tour. They were a big thing at one time. Again, they were a big thing actually 2 different times, but this is probably their heyday the second time around. Let's see here. This is a fun one for you headbangers out there. The Doubleheader Tour. This would have been Great White. Hold on. It says it on there. Great White and Tesla. 2 for 1. October 21st, 1989. Great White and Tesla. Sorry, I had to throw that out there. One of my favorite looking, a couple of these are my favorite passes here. This was from the Colt Sonic Temple Tour in 1989, which is pretty cool. I always thought that was a cool design, and it survived all these years. A little ragged, obviously, but I probably had this on a leather jacket when I went to see the tour, and I think that was at the arena in Baltimore. It's one of my least favorite acts in the entire world. That was Eddie Money. I did a lot of Eddie Money stuff, and just don't like his music for some reason. Here's one you didn't think I would find myself at either, but it was the Dirty Dancing Tour. This was in Ocean City, Maryland. Did a couple shows with the Dirty Dancing Tour. It was a big deal back then, I guess in '88. There's Otto again, doing all that stuff. Midnight Oil, this is during their big Diesel and Dust tour, which is a great album. If you're into stuff like that, I think this is 1988, but Diesel and Dust, Midnight Oil, that's another cool pass, I think, as well. TJ, my wife does too. My wife was a professional dancer, but yeah, I get you, man. I get you. I'm going to mix it up here. Check this out. This is from 1997. This is from the 1997 NBA All-Star Game. John Keating, blah, blah, blah. Game operation. So we did the lighting. My company did the lighting for the 1997 NBA All-Star Game. And I think I've said before that that's the year they introduced the 50 greatest players of the NBA. And Paul Young was not the singer for Mike and the Mechanics. Mike, it was somebody else. It was somebody else. Hey, Drew, how are you, man? It was somebody else. It was the dude from Squeeze or something. Paul Young's a great singer, but it wasn't Paul Young. Dang. Anyway, back to 1997. Greatest 58 and greatest players in history of NBA. 48 out of the 50 were there. The only ones missing were Shaq because he had a boo-boo, and Pete Maravich, who had a bigger boo-boo than Shaq's. So every other 48 of the greatest NBA players of all time back then, and the 50th greatest basketball players were there. I remember sharing space with where I had one of my dimmer racks. They gave all the old players varsity jackets from their teams, and I shared my little area where they walked on with the centers, and it was Moses, it was Kareem, it was Akeem, it was George Mikan, it was Wilt. Wilt was still alive, so it was pretty special. It was a pretty special time, and pretty incredible to be there. And that's when I almost ended up, I don't know whether I've told the story of ending up as a sandwich for between Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson as well, because I was coming around the corner and I looked behind me and Magic was behind me with a bunch of camera guys. And I'm looking behind me, walking around the corner. And then I turn around and then Michael was there with a bunch of cameras. And within 10 feet, it was Michael, John Keating, and Magic. And they're like, who's this little cracker here? Get the cracker out of here. Cracker exited, and then they were able to embrace. I'm glad I was able to make that happen. I felt a lot like Jimmy Carter at Camp David at that moment, but it was almost a Forrest Gump moment. 1997 NBA All-Star Game. Here's the Gatlin brothers, if you're into that kind of thing. Pat Benatar, this was when she was doing her blues thingamajobber. So she would do a blues tour. Her husband, Neil the Spider Gerardo, who's a bit of a dick, wanted to do a blues tour. So we got Patty to go along with it. Did a couple Pat Benatar things later on. Here's a fun one. Lou Reed, legend, obviously. This was actually a pretty good show. I think this was in Baltimore as well. So this was actually a pretty good show. Not a big Lou Reed fan, but I did really appreciate that show. Here's some Crosby, Stills passes. Crosby, Stills, and Nash passes from the 1990 tour. Move those over there. Another Maniacs. Here's a Blockbuster Rock Fest. This was at like a huge speedway in Texas, Dallas, Texas once. It was massive. Millions of people. Millions of Texans. Another Richard Marx thing. Here's that Laguna Seca days I was telling you about. Here's the David Crosby 1989 tour. Gloria Estefan, 1988, Miami Arena, the third show in the old Miami Arena, which was Frank Sinatra and Liza Minnelli opened the building. The next night it was WWF, and then the next night it was the Miami Sound Machine. There's Janet Jackson, what's called a backstage pass. There, stick on more Maniacs. There's the Iconery I was talking about. They used to do a lot of cool little things on their passes, I think. Here's big elephants, all that stuff. More Maniacs, more Maniacs, more Maniacs. Here's ACDC. That was another company picnic type place where I had to take a client out and talk to them. Paul Carrick is the name. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. So pretty cool little haircut there, razor's edge. Bam. Let's look at some comments because I'm horrible at looking at comments. I too am a cult fan, Mark. I thought Sonic Temple was a brilliant album. Wonderful band for sure. TJ loves his Dirty Dancing because he loves his wife. Mike Rutherford, Anthony Drennan, Tim Howard. Dude, where did you cut and paste that from, man? TJ, you have to work on that a little bit. Paul Carrick, Mike, and Mark, you both got it. Yeah, I don't know why he's a great singer, by the way, Paul Carrick. Initially, the band had vocalists Paul Carrick and Paul Young. Following Young's death in 2000, Carrick became the band's lead soul. So, TJ, this would have been like the 1980s, late 1980s. So, Paul Young may have gone in there after Paul Carrick, but I believe Paul Carrick did all those all the hits that Mike and the Mechanics had, if I'm not mistaken. My hearing is horrible, Mike. It truly is horrible. I tell people that's one reason why I wear the headphones because obviously I can't hear very well. So I was at a dinner last weekend in Dallas, and I was telling Moynihan that a crowded table, there must have been 12 people at the table in a restaurant, is the worst thing for me in the world because all I hear is droning. And I can't understand, and I have to concentrate and I have to look at people to understand what they're saying in a bar or a restaurant or stuff like that. So my hearing's bad because back in those days, in the 80s and 90s, we didn't care. Sound systems took a lot longer to ring out. Now it's a lot more. It's more digital now, right? Like you can do predictions and all that stuff with your sound system. Back when I toured, it was mostly trial and error. So you'd hang a bunch of speakers and then you'd blast them and then you'd walk the room to see how it sounded where and all that stuff and radio down to your pal. Hey, turn this down, turn that down. Now it's all done iPad and it isn't an hour or two of just pink noise blasting through the arena. So, and as a lighting guy, another Richard Marks pass, as a lighting guy, I bore the brunt of it because I would be on the front truss focusing lights right at the level of the PA. So, hearing's horrible. Incidentally, my wife has a hard time talking. She's got like a condensed vocal cord. So when her and I get together in a restaurant, boy, it's pretty frustrating. So yeah. So here's some Bonnie Raitt stuff. A cool little Luck of the Draw tour right there. Nice little sideways diamond. There's another Bonnie Raitt. Talk a little bit about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I know I showed a pass there, but these were pretty cool, fun passes too. This would say great wide opening act or great wide opening act because the tour was into the great wide open. Showtime 1991-92. This would be the working crew pass for the stagehands, open wide for the crew. Ha ha ha. I'll get it. So that's that. Tom Petty and Heartbreakers, If Dogs Could Fly, or If Dogs Had Wings. This is 1995. Dogs with Wings tour. And this was one of the fun. This is like the generic backstage pass, all dressed up with somewhere to go. And you'd see the ladies there all ready to go backstage. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So, and here's one more Tom Petty, touring the Great Wide Open, after show only. So, like you'd give this pass to your mom and your brother and your sister, but you'd give this pass to people and you would hope you didn't see your mom or your sister with one of these passes because it meant something completely different. And here's one from 1991, incidentally, when I was on the Tom Petty tour. Tom Petty adopted a rule like a lot of bands I worked for, Neil Young and others that had been around a while. They would do no more than 2 shows in a row. So if they did 2 shows and have a day off, 2 shows, have a day off. So Tom Petty had to go do Saturday Night Live in 1991. We were in, I think, Charlotte or Raleigh. I'm not sure which one. Somewhere in North Kakalaki, and so that counted as a show. So we had the day off. So we were in North Kakalaki playing the next day, and we were invited to see these guys, Van Halen, right? So we went to see the show. Sammy Hagar, it was fine, right? Um, Pretty good show. Got to see Eddie, all that stuff. So Eddie and the band were staying at the same hotel we were that night. So everybody went back to the Radisson. I want to say it was the Radisson for some reason, and hanging out in the bar, hanging out in the bar, hanging out in the bar. And I wasn't hanging with Eddie Van Halen, but he was there, and some guy was hounding him mercilessly, and Eddie had enough, and Eddie had to leave, and the guy was wearing a New York Giants jacket, football Giants, and Eddie is leaving. He stopped, looked at me, and said, "Giants fucking blow," and then he left. And I laughed because I think I might have had an Eagles shirt on or something. So it was the first and last words Eddie Van Halen ever spoke to me were "Giants fucking blow." So hey, Rob, how are you? There's my friend in beautiful Colorado. How are you? And yeah, so that's my Eddie Van Halen shirt. Did I ever slip on stage when no one was looking and play Guitar Hero? Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't because I did. If I wasn't working, I would be on the bus taking a sissy nap. So if you want to hear the life, I'll tell you what it was like back then, right? So say your day begins at 7 a.m. You unload the trucks, riggers are up there hanging stuff from the ceiling. You're unloading trucks. And back then, every arena was different. Now they all have loading docks and they're all the same. They're all the same dimensions, all that stuff. But imagine, Philly Spectrum, Buffalo Auditorium, Boston Garden, LA Sports Arena, Joe Louis Arena. They all had different vibes and different dimensions. So you're trying to get your show in there and all that stuff. So you work, you get your stuff up by maybe around noon. Take a quick lunch break, plug stuff in, fire stuff up, and then climb up the little ladders and go focus the lights. Now, some tours I did had 60 lights with a couple moving lights. Some tours I did had 1,200 lights. So think about 1,200 lights having to be touched every day and pointed and all that stuff. So do that stuff till about 3 or 4, and then you go take your sissy nap, right? Because you need your sissy nap because if you're running lights for the opening band, you need to be ready to talk to the spotlight operators, doors. Then the show happens, and the show's over at 11 o'clock, and then you got 3 hours of tearing it down, putting it back in the trucks. And by that time, after you put it in the trucks, you go grab a towel, you go shower in the locker room, get on the bus, you have your cold pizza, and it's 2, 3 in the morning at that point. Maybe you have a beer, and then you drive to the next town, and you do it all again in 4 hours. So that's why that's why you take your nap during the day. I had no urge to be on stage because the fun part was, as a lighting guy, you get up earlier and you get out later, but you have that time in the middle where the sound guys come in a little later and the backline guys come in a lot later, but they don't get a break in their work. So once the band comes on and does their sound check, that happens until whatever, maybe 5 o'clock. And then you have to switch the stage over for the opening act. And then the opening act has to come do their sound check. By that time, it's 7 o'clock, doors open. If you're a sound guy, you go get a bite to eat. And then the opening act happens. And then you got to change the stage over again for the main band and then do the loadout, all that fun stuff. So I was a lighting guy, took my sissy naps. Didn't want to be anywhere near the stage grabbing a guitar. I suck at guitars. I was really good at trombone, not the rusty kind, but I was really good at trombone, but sucked at guitars. Although I did play in a crew band for Ani DeFranco. The only song I knew was Detroit Rock City. So we would play that every day, but no, wouldn't play the guitar at all. Somebody's always looking too, Drew. Tom Petty, the Tom Petty ones are nice there, Tony. I like the Tom Petty ones. I probably got to sell some of this stuff, and we'll see what happens. So that's it. That's my. If you missed the beginning, I'll show you the Baltimore Orioles ones again, and my Eagles ones. And I know you don't want to see that, Rob, but that's a nice little. I don't know whether Chip Kelly was not there at the time. He was probably coaching the Eagles at the time. But yeah, so that's that. that's my life in a nutshell, how I started and how I spent 10 years of my life, just playing playing rock star for rock stars, I guess, or living a rock star lifestyle. So good times. Thanks for joining me. If you sell, I gotta get the groupie passes. I'll see. I'll see what I got back there, man. I'm gonna come down and my wife's like, why are all the backstage passes out? But yeah, I don't know what to tell her. So thanks everybody. Thanks for joining me. All that fun stuff. I appreciate it. I don't know if anybody's got a collection like that, or you know what's cool about this collection? What's cool about this collection is it isn't something that I bought at a show. It isn't something that I traded with somebody. This is like every one of these things I've earned, which is kind of cool. Whether it's just being a punter at a show, sometimes working a show on a local crew, or obviously touring with the band. So it's kind of fun to see a collection that was earned rather than acquired. There was only one way to get this stuff, and that was to do it. So guess I'm kind of proud of that. I have a lot of old memorabilia and stuff like that from the rock and roll days, but I'm not a huge collector. I've got some autos, just not, I'm not an auto guy, but it's fun to have some old stuff. I've kind of weaned, or I've kind of gotten rid of it and culled some of it over the years, but I still have a few fun things laying around. But yep, that's my backstage passes. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That's it for me. See you guys, gals, and transitioning folks on the other side. Thanks so much.